Today I want to make a video about something I feel like quite a lot of people have been through and quite a lot of people suffer from, and that is the not sick enough mentality. And now the not sick enough mentality, I feel it can be like a thing in both mental and physical illnesses, especially with like chronic illnesses, so like IBS, fibromyalgia, Crohn's, colitis, endometriosis, and all the other chronic illnesses which I have forgotten to mention just because I don't know about, I guess. But yeah, I listed off some of the common ones there. Okay, so the not sick enough mentality is where you feel like you're not sick enough for treatment, you're not sick enough for help, you're not sick enough to have a disorder because maybe your symptoms aren't every day of the week. Maybe they're not consistent like that. Maybe you've read an experience about someone with a disorder you think you might have, like say you googled anorexia, for example, and you came across an article written by the Daily Mail about someone who was hours away from death and they weighed like 2 stone or something ridiculous like that. And then you read this experience and you feel like you're not sick enough to have that illness or that mental disorder because you don't have it as bad as that person. I feel like especially in anorexia as well, and other mental illnesses, like more than with physical illnesses, the not sick enough mentality can come as part of a mental disorder. So with anorexia, obviously denial is a really common trait, and you constantly deny to yourself that you're not sick enough for whatever reasons that may be. May it be because you're not skinny enough, or because you eat too many calories to be anorexic, or because some days you can eat normally, or because you still eat junk food, or I don't know, whatever your eating disorder tells you as to say you're not sick enough. And I feel like it's really, really damaging. This not sick enough mentality in both mental and physical illnesses is so damaging. It can lead to death in cases of anorexia, especially. It can lead to mental illnesses in cases of physical illness. It can lead to mental illness getting worse. It can lead to you just not being able to live your life to the full because you've never gone and got that treatment that you need and that you deserve, because you're constantly kidding yourself that you're not sick enough. And I feel like social media and just the media in general these days, and how everyone is so like media glued, and like, when you get a physical illness and you go Google crazy, I feel like that has definitely contributed a lot to the not sick enough mentality. And especially in my case, I mean, last year I was really depressed, and I kept on telling myself that I wasn't depressed because I could still go to school. But just because I could still go to school, it doesn't mean that I wasn't depressed. Like, I was depressed, okay? And I only realised that I was so depressed, like, when we learnt about depression in psychology. And in the DSM, you have to have 5 of the symptoms for major depression for a period of at least 2 weeks on most days. So these symptoms include depressed mood, loss of appetite, insomnia, lethargy, weight loss or weight gain by 5%, lack of interest in doing once enjoyed activities, suicidal thoughts, and there's a couple of other symptoms as well which I can't remember, but you get the gist, right? And it was only when I learnt this that I realised I was depressed. And although I never went to see like a GP about it, I mean, I was actually put on antidepressants when I was relapsing into anorexia, but I never took them because vomiting phobia. Although I never went to see a GP or took the antidepressants I was meant to take for this depression, even though I wasn't talking about how I was depressed in this doctor's appointment, I think knowing and accepting that I had depression definitely helped to make things a lot better and help make me the happier person that I am right now, and help me, be able to enjoy my life and live my life to the full, really. And it's the same with physical illnesses, in all honesty. I feel like I'm someone who's been like ill until the beginning of this year, you know, for like 8 years, 7 years. It'll be nearly 8 years in December. It'll be nearly 8 years in December. And so obviously I've gone Google crazy a lot in my time. And I mean, I think I have endometriosis, and you read people's experiences of endometriosis, for example, and you hear about how people like pass out and all these, you know, terrifying things that don't happen to you. Like, I've never passed out because of pain. I've never passed out anyway. It's just not something I do, you know? And I've definitely used that a lot of the time to like kid myself that my period pains have been normal, that my ovulation pains have been normal, that all the nausea I've been experiencing has been normal, the diarrhea on my period has been normal, and that like all the symptoms associated with that have all been normal. But the reality is, just because I don't have it as bad as other people, it doesn't mean those symptoms aren't normal, and it doesn't mean those symptoms don't require help and require a treatment, because obviously they've still been a bother to my life. And I feel like, especially with physical illness, if you're suffering from a chronic illness that isn't diagnosed yet, you do need to understand that people have different levels of pain threshold and levels of pain tolerance. Like, I, for example, have a fairly high level of pain tolerance, especially when it comes to like abdominal pain, pelvic pain, and back pain, because I've had to deal with that for so long. I mean, like, a slight bit of cramping doesn't bother me, but when it gets bad, like, I know there's something wrong with me, because I can tolerate it. Like, you know, I've always had to go about my normal daily activities, so I've learned to tolerate pain in the area. And I've also had friends who've had really low pain thresholds, or it seems like they've had really low pain thresholds, I don't know. But I've had friends who've like complained about how getting their braces off hurt, and in my personal experience of getting my braces off, it didn't hurt at all. There was no pain there. It was just, you know, the vibration made me a bit anxious. And, you know, getting like the molars and the imprints, obviously that kind of triggered my emetophobia, which made me a bit anxious, but it didn't hurt. And that's not saying that people with low pain thresholds have pain that isn't valid, and that you should use the fact that you may have a low pain threshold as an excuse for not being sick enough. Whoa, I have done that one before as well, even though I obviously don't have a low pain threshold, because it's still bothering you. But it's definitely something you need to think about when you read other people's experiences online, or hear about other people's experiences in life. And especially if you're reading articles from like the Daily Mail about anything. If you're reading an article about anorexia from the Daily Mail, or reading an article about IBS on the Daily Mail, or reading an article about chronic fatigue syndrome on the Daily Mail, or whatever you're reading an article on, or some other tabloid newspaper, you need to understand that it has been overly dramatised for effect, and you need to not let that over dramatisation affect you when you know too well that you are sick enough. I mean, if you're Googling a condition, it's because you're sick enough, guy. Like, don't let anything discourage you from that, because it is just so damaging. And honestly, if you're thinking you're not sick enough, you probably are sick enough. So just understand that you are sick enough, and you do deserve help, whatever severity your symptoms are, and whatever, you know, however frequent they occur. If you have a mental or physical problem that is impacting on your life, you are sick enough to deserve help. You are sick enough to go down to your GP and get help. It doesn't matter that you're not as bad as other people, or you have some good days, or there's a little part of you that thinks, maybe I'm just making it up for attention. Maybe I just have a low pain threshold. Maybe I'm just making a fuss over nothing. Because if you're questioning these things, chances are you are sick enough. Chances are you need help, and you should go and get that help. And I feel like today on social media, we need to be more accepting and more open, and talk more about people with anorexia or depression or anxiety or IBS or endometriosis or colitis or Crohn's disease or any other condition who doesn't have it at like the absolute worst possible stage possible. We need to talk about like the lesser versions of them. We need to talk about the people who've had anorexia who have only got down to a BMI of 16, or have only got down to a BMI of 17.5. We need to talk about the people with EDNOS who probably weren't underweight at all within their eating disorders. We need to talk about the people with depression who could still go and carry out their normal daily activities. The people with anxiety who could still go and carry out their normal daily activities. We need to talk about the people with IBS who didn't have major full-on diarrhea or constipation 100% of the time. And the people with endometriosis who don't always pass out because of their periods. We need to talk and understand within today's society that everyone's experience of an illness or a mental disorder is different, and just because you don't have it as bad as someone else, it doesn't mean you're not sick enough. It just means you're not them, really. And I will see you in my next video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and follow me on all my other social medias. Links will be down in the description.